The first time my parents tried to send me to prison, they did it over dinner. The table was set like always, warm lights, clean plates, my mother's favorite roast in the center. Everything looked normal. That was the scariest part. My father didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He simply slid a thick file across the table toward me and placed a pen on top of it. "Sign," he said. I laughed, waiting for the punchline. It never came. My mother leaned back in her chair, smiling like she was enjoying a joke only she understood. "5 years in prison won't k-times you," she said lightly. I froze. The words didn't sound real, but the papers in front of me did, my name typed neatly at the top, already waiting to take the blame for something I didn't do. My hands were shaking when I took the folder. That night, instead of signing, I made one phone call. And with just 3 words, the notary changed everything. I grew up learning one lesson over and over again. Don't be the problem. In my family, that was my job. I was the reliable daughter, the one who remembered birthdays, paid her own bills, and never needed rescuing. My parents loved to brag about it to relatives. "Ava is easy," my mom would say with a proud smile. "She doesn't cause drama," my dad added. "She understands how the world works." What they never said out loud was the rest of the sentence. "Because she knows how to swallow disappointment." My older brother Tyler was different. He had always been different. Loud, charming, restless. The kind of person who laughed his way out of trouble while someone else cleaned up behind him. When Tyler failed a class, my parents blamed the school. When he lost a job, it was his boss's fault. When he made mistakes, they called them phases. When I struggled, it was a test of character. "You're stronger than that," my dad would say. "Life isn't fair," my mom reminded me. "You can handle it," they both agreed. And I did, over and over again. So when my father texted me earlier that week, "Family dinner. Important, please be there," I didn't panic. I didn't question it. I assumed it was another small emergency I'd be expected to quietly solve. That was my mistake. The dinner itself felt almost too normal. The table was set perfectly. The food smelled warm and familiar. My mom chatted about neighbors I didn't know. My dad poured wine like it was a celebration. Tyler barely looked up from his phone, already bored. I remember thinking, maybe I imagined the tension. Then my father stood up, walked to the cabinet, and pulled out a thick manila folder. He didn't slam it down. He didn't hesitate. He placed it gently in front of me, like a gift. "Take a look," he said. I opened it, expecting financial paperwork. Maybe a loan. Maybe something they wanted me to co-sign, like always. Instead, I saw my name typed neatly across the top of a document that made my stomach drop. A confession. A formal statement accepting responsibility for a crime I didn't recognize but somehow already knew belonged to Tyler. I looked up slowly. "What is this?" My father's voice stayed calm. Too calm. "It's a solution." My mother laughed softly, swirling her wine. "Don't make that face. You're acting like it's the end of the world." And it was. I flipped through the pages, my hands starting to shake. Dates. Numbers. Language that screamed legal consequences. "You want me to sign this?" I asked. My dad nodded once. "Yes, for something I didn't do?" Tyler finally looked up, rolling his eyes. "You're overthinking it." I turned to him. "What did you do?" He shrugged. "Nothing serious." My mother leaned forward, her tone light, almost playful. 5 years in prison won't k-times you," she said. "You'll survive." The room went silent. Not because she'd said something shocking, but because she'd said it so easily. I stared at her, searching for a trace of irony. A hint that this was some twisted joke. There was none. In that moment, everything I had ignored for years finally lined up. They weren't asking me because they trusted me. They weren't asking me because I was capable. They were asking me because they believed I would say yes, because I had always said yes. As my father slid a pen toward me, watching my reaction with careful eyes, a cold realization settled deep in my chest. This dinner wasn't about fixing a mistake. It was about choosing who would pay for it, and they had already chosen me. For a long time, I just sat there, staring at the papers as if they might rearrange themselves into something less terrifying. The words didn't blur. They didn't soften. Every sentence was precise, final, and unforgiving. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a legal trap, carefully written, carefully prepared, and calmly handed to me by the two people who were supposed to protect me. "I need time," I said quietly. My father frowned. "Time for what?" "To read," I replied. "To understand what you're asking me to destroy." My mother sighed, clearly irritated. "Ava, don't be dramatic. We're your parents. We wouldn't let anything truly bad happen to you." I looked at her. "Prison is something bad." She waved her hand. "It's temporary. People rebuild." The way she said it, as if my life were a disposable object, made something twist painfully in my chest. Tyler leaned back in his chair, folding his arms. "You're always so sensitive." Sensitive. That was the word they used when they didn't want to call me human. I pushed the folder back slightly. "I want to know exactly what happened." My father's jaw tightened. "That's not necessary." "It is to me," I said. Mom's smile thinned. "You don't need details, you just need to help." Help. That word landed harder than the threat of prison. Because help implied love. Help implied choice. This wasn't help, it was coercion wrapped in family language. I stood up slowly, my legs unsteady. "I'm not signing anything tonight." The room changed instantly. My father's voice sharpened. "Sit down." "I need air," I said. Mom stood too, her voice suddenly cold. "If you walk away from this, don't expect us to clean up the mess when it comes back on you." I turned to her, stunned. "The mess you're asking me to take?" She crossed her arms. "You always twist things." "No," I said softly. "This time I'm finally seeing them clearly." Tyler laughed under his breath. "God, you're acting like we're villains." I met his eyes. "If you weren't, you wouldn't need me to go to prison for you." Silence. The kind that means the truth has landed and no one wants to touch it. My father reached for the folder again. "Take the papers home if you must, but don't drag this out." I hesitated, then took the folder. Not because I agreed, but because I knew something was wrong in a way that went far beyond Tyler's latest mistake. As I walked out the door, my mother called after me, her voice sharp and final. "Remember, Ava family comes first." I didn't turn around. Because for the first time in my life, I understood exactly what family meant to them. It meant I was replaceable. And that realization hurt more than any prison sentence ever could. I didn't drive home right away. I sat in my car in the dark, the folder resting on the passenger seat like it was watching me. My hands were shaking so badly I had to grip the steering wheel just to feel something solid. For a moment, I considered doing what I'd always done, calming myself down, convincing myself there had been some mistake, telling myself they didn't really mean it. But the words wouldn't leave my head. 5 years in prison won't kill you. Asterisk. They hadn't whispered it. They hadn't said it in anger. My mother had said it like advice. I opened the folder again, forcing myself to read every page slowly. Dates, account numbers, statements written in cold legal language. Whoever had drafted this knew exactly what they were doing. This wasn't a rushed decision made over dinner. It had been planned, and that scared me more than the prison time ever could. On the last page, I noticed a detail I'd missed before: a stamp and a name printed neatly at the bottom. Evelyn Carter. Notary Public. My heart skipped. I stared at the phone in my hand, hesitating. Calling felt dangerous, like crossing an invisible line. If I made that call, I couldn't pretend this was just a family argument anymore. It would become something else, something real, something legal. I took a breath and dialed. The phone rang twice. "This is Evelyn Carter," a woman answered, her voice professional and alert. My throat tightened. "Miss Carter, my name is Ava Reynolds. I'm calling about documents you notarized earlier this week." There was a pause. Not long, but long enough. "Yes?" she said carefully. I read the file number and date. Silence again, this time heavier. "Where did you get those papers?" she asked. "My father gave them to me tonight," I said. "He wants me to sign." Another pause. Then, very firmly, "Do not sign anything." My pulse jumped. "Why?" She exhaled slowly, like someone choosing their words with care. "Ava, those documents are part of a larger transaction." I leaned forward, heart pounding. "What kind of transaction?" "The transfer of ownership," she said. "Business shares, property interests, a trust amendment." I felt dizzy. "That doesn't make sense. None of that belongs to me." "On paper, she replied. It does now. My mouth went dry. What are you saying? Her voice dropped. Your parents signed documents that transferred control of nearly everything to you. I gripped the phone. Then why would they ask me to confess to a crime? There was a long silence. Finally, she said. Because someone in your family is trying to move responsibility, and someone else is trying to move risk. And it is not weist, in the coolers not whiteney. The pieces began to slide into place, slow and terrifying. They're setting me up, I whispered. Yes, she said quietly. And they didn't expect you to call the notary. I closed my eyes, my chest tight. What should I do? Meet me tomorrow morning, she said. Bring every page you have. And Ava. Yes? Do not go back there alone. I ended the call and sat there in the dark, the weight of her words sinking in. Dinner hadn't been about family. It had been about liability. And somehow, without even realizing it, my parents had just handed me the one thing they never meant to give me. The truth. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my mother smiling across the dinner table, heard my father's steady voice telling me to sign, felt the weight of that folder pressing into my chest. By morning, my fear had hardened into something sharper focus. Evelyn Carter's office was small, clean, and intimidating in the way only places tied to the law can be. She greeted me with a firm handshake and didn't waste time on small talk. Show me everything, she said. I laid the papers out on her desk, page by page. She examined them with practiced precision, marking sections with sticky notes, her expression growing more serious with every document. These are not isolated forms, she explained. They're part of a coordinated transfer. Your parents didn't just sign one thing, they signed multiple things. My stomach tightened. They told me it was just a confession. That was the bait, she replied. The hook is the ownership. She slid a different stack of papers toward me, copies she had kept in her records. Business shares, property deeds, a revised trust document, all bearing my parents' signatures, all listing me as the recipient. They signed these after receiving notice of a financial review, Evelyn said calmly. A review? I echoed. She nodded. An audit. Something triggered it. The word sent a chill through me. Tyler. Evelyn didn't confirm or deny it. She didn't need to. If the business is found responsible for wrongdoing, she continued, the person in control becomes the focal point. Liability follows authority. I stared at the documents, my hands trembling. So they tried to make me both the owner and the criminal. Yes, she said simply. They intended to control the outcome through pressure. But legally speaking, once those documents were signed and notarized, their intentions don't matter as much as their actions. My chest felt tight. I don't want any of this. Evelyn's gaze softened. I know, but ignoring it won't protect you. She leaned forward. You need legal representation. Immediately. I swallowed. I don't even know where to start. Evelyn picked up her phone. I do. She dialed a number without hesitation. David Kim? This is Evelyn Carter. I have a client who needs you today. She looked at me as she listened, then nodded once. Yes. Coercion. Potential false confession. Asset manipulation. When she hung up, she met my eyes. You're not alone anymore, Ava. For the first time since that dinner, my hands stopped shaking. Because the truth was finally on my side. And the paper trail they had built to trap me, it was about to become the thing that exposed them. David Kim's office felt nothing like my parents' house. There were no family photos on the walls. No forced smiles, no unspoken rules about who was allowed to speak. Just glass, steel, and the quiet confidence of a man who dealt in facts instead of fear. David listened without interrupting, as I told him everything from the dinner table to the notary's office. He didn't rush me. He didn't soften my words. When I finished, he leaned back slightly and folded his hands. They tried to coerce you into taking criminal responsibility, he said calmly. That's serious. My throat tightened. They're my parents. He nodded once. And that makes the pressure more effective, not less. He spread the documents across the desk, organizing them into neat stacks. Right now, your biggest advantage is that you didn't sign anything. What about the ownership transfer? I asked. Does that mean the business is actually mine? On paper? He said. Possibly. But intent matters. And so does timing. He pointed to the audit notice Evelyn had mentioned. These documents were executed after the business came under scrutiny. That suggests an attempt to shift risk. So, what do we do? I asked. David's answer surprised me. We slow everything down. He explained the plan in precise steps. No shouting, no dramatic confrontations, just strategy. First, we would document everything. Every text, every call, every message that suggested pressure or threats. Second, all future communication would go through him. Not because I was hiding, but because I was protecting myself. Third, we would formally separate me from day-to-day business operations, making it clear I had not authorized any past actions. And the confession? I asked. He looked at me directly. You never sign it. Not now, not later. A strange sense of relief washed over me. David slid my phone back toward me. I want you to text your parents. Keep it calm. Ask them to explain in writing what they want you to take responsibility for. My heart started racing. You want me to provoke them? No, he said. I want them to reveal themselves. I hesitated, then typed with careful fingers. Ava, I need clarity before I do anything. Can you explain exactly what I'm being asked to confess to? 3 dots appeared almost immediately. Dad, stop overthinking. You're making this harder than it needs to be. David raised an eyebrow. Ava, if I'm signing legal documents, I need details. This time, my mother replied. Mom, we raised you better than this. You know what's right for the family. David pointed at the screen. That's pressure, not explanation. A cold understanding settled in my chest. They didn't want me informed. They wanted me compliant. As I watched the messages come in vague, dismissive, increasingly impatient, I realized something I'd never allowed myself to think before. My silence had protected them for years. And now, for the first time, my silence was over. What came next wouldn't be emotional. It would be deliberate. And they weren't ready for that. David told me not to go back. Not yet. Not without preparation. Not without witnesses, boundaries, and a clear purpose. But when my father texted, "Come tonight, we need to finish this," I knew avoiding them forever wasn't an option. Not if I wanted to understand how far they were willing to go, and not if I wanted proof, so I went back. Not as their daughter. As a woman who finally understood the rules of the game. I parked 2 houses away and sat in my car for a full minute, breathing slowly, reminding myself of David's instructions. Observe. Don't argue. Don't promise anything. My phone was in my pocket, messages backed up, evidence secured. When I rang the doorbell, my mother opened the door with a tight smile. There you are, she said. I was starting to think you'd lost your nerve. I stepped inside. The house smelled the same. Familiar, comforting, and suddenly dangerous. My father was already at the dining table, the folder laid out neatly like a contract waiting to be closed. Tyler sat on the couch, arms crossed, watching me like I was the problem that needed fixing. Dad didn't waste time. Did you sign? No, I said. The word hung in the air longer than it should have. Mom sighed dramatically. Ava, why are you doing this? Because I need the truth, I replied. Tyler scoffed. You're blowing this out of proportion. I turned to him. Then explain it. He looked to my father. My father looked away. That silence told me more than any confession ever could. Dad's voice hardened. We don't have time for your questions. That's funny, I said quietly. You had plenty of time to prepare those papers. Mom's eyes flashed. You're being ungrateful. For what? I asked. For being asked to destroy my own life? My father stood up slowly. Not violently. Not loudly. Just enough to make his authority fill the room. You've always been difficult when you think too much, he said. This is bigger than you. It was Nestor. I felt something inside me steady instead of breaking. No, I replied. It's bigger than you expected. I pulled out my phone not to record, just to anchor myself. I spoke to the notary. The effect was instant. My mother froze. Tyler's posture changed. My father's jaw tightened. You did what? He asked. I spoke to Evelyn Carter, I said. She told me what you signed. Mom recovered first. That's private family business. It stopped being private when you tried to send me to prison, I said. My father's voice dropped. You don't understand what you're risking. I met his eyes. I do now. For the first time, no one spoke over me. No one dismissed me. No one laughed. Because the version of me standing in that room wasn't the one they had trained to obey, and they could feel it. As I turned toward the door, my mother called after me, her voice sharp with something that sounded like fear. "If you walk away, don't expect us to protect you." I paused and looked back. "You already made that choice," I said. And this time, when I walked out, I didn't feel like I was running. I felt like I was leaving a crime scene, and I was done being the evidence. Everything unraveled faster than I expected. 3 days after I walked out of my parents' house, my phone started buzzing nonstop. Messages from relatives I barely spoke to. Missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize. My mother had done what she always did. When she lost control, she had rewritten the story and sent it into the world. According to her, I had abandoned the family. I was unstable. I was trying to steal what didn't belong to me. Catted. I sat on my couch, staring at my phone, feeling the familiar pull of guilt trying to drag me back into silence. Then David called. "They've contacted the authorities," he said calmly. "An investigator reached out to me this morning." My stomach dropped. "About me?" "About the business," he corrected. "And about Tyler." That was the moment fear finally turned into clarity. An hour later, I received the call myself. "This is Investigator Harris," a man said. "Miss Reynolds, we'd like to ask you a few questions regarding Reynolds Home Supply." My hands trembled, but my voice stayed steady. "I'm represented by counsel. Please speak with my attorney." There was a brief pause. "Understood." When the call ended, I felt something strange relief. Because now, it wasn't my word against my parents. It was records, dates, signatures, timelines. That afternoon, Tyler texted me for the first time since the dinner. "Tyler, you think you're smart? Dad says the business is yours now. That means whatever happens is on you." I stared at the screen, my chest tight. Then I forwarded the message to David. Seconds later, he replied, "That message just confirmed intent. Save it." I realized then how desperate they were becoming. Threats replaced persuasion. Pressure replaced pretending. My mother left a voicemail that night, her voice shaking not with regret but with anger. "You're destroying this family," she said. "If you don't fix this, you'll regret it." I listened to it twice. Then I saved it too, because the truth was no longer something I had to explain. It was something they were proving for me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to be believed. I was simply letting the truth speak, and it was louder than all of them combined. The meeting took place on a quiet Monday morning, in a room that felt too small for everything it was about to hold. My parents sat across the table from me. No shouting, no dramatic gestures, just stiff smiles and restless hands. Tyler wasn't there. I noticed that immediately. Investigator Harris laid out the documents, one by one, bank records, access logs, email authorizations, the kind of evidence that didn't care about family titles or excuses. "Miss Reynolds," he said, turning to me, "based on our findings, you did not initiate or approve these transactions." The air left my lungs in a slow, silent release. He continued, "The access originated from an internal account linked to your brother." My mother's face drained of color. My father stared at the table like it might open and swallow him. "We were trying to protect our son," my mother whispered. Harris looked unimpressed. "By pressuring your daughter to accept criminal responsibility?" No one answered. I expected anger to rise in me, or triumph, or even satisfaction. Instead, I felt something quieter and stronger. Clarity. After the meeting, my parents tried one last time. "You don't have to do this," my father said, his voice low. "You can fix it." I met his eyes. I already did, by telling the truth. Outside, the sky was bright and painfully ordinary. Life continuing, indifferent to the damage that had nearly been done. I didn't keep the business as a symbol of revenge. With legal guidance, I stepped back, ensured the employees were protected, and made my own path forward, one that didn't require sacrificing myself to be loved. Because here's what I learned. Anyone who asks you to carry their punishment is telling you exactly how much your life is worth to them. And once you see that clearly, you don't owe them your freedom. You owe it to yourself.